Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, welcome to the Poudre River Fest. This is our third day of programming for this year's hybrid event. Today, everything is focused on how we use water in our everyday life. Our next presentation is from the Open Water Foundation, and they are going to be presenting on the Poudre Basin information website that they have recently created and are working on. The Poudre River Fest is organized by a group of organizations, nonprofits in the Fort Collins community. These are the folks that are behind the Poudre River Fest. The Poudre River Fest has a goal of education, so we want to make sure that we're informing and educating the community about the importance of the Poudre River. We also have a fundraising and restoration goal with the event. So proceeds from the Poudre River Fest go to support restoration projects on the Cache La Poudre River. So if you're interested in learning more or would like to donate, you can visit poudreriverfest.org. So I will stop sharing my screen. I'm going to hand it over to the very talented and capable Steve Mallers. He is going to share more about the Poudre Basin information website and the project that he has been so dedicated to working on.
Okay, thanks, Laura. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, you're all set.
Okay, so my name is Steve Mallers, and I founded the Open Water Foundation in 2013. And we focus on developing open source software and open data solutions to make better decisions about water. And on our website, you can find more information and some examples of data and visualizations and stories and things like that related to water. And today I'm going to be focusing on the Poudre Basin information website. If you are want to try this out yourself, the URL is poudre.openwaterfoundation.org. And the home page here provides a little bit of background and is the jumping off point for the website. The motivation for this website was to follow up on a number of different things that were going on. I served on the Fort Collins Water Board for 10 years, and I realized that water issues in the Poudre Basin are very complicated, and there was a need to provide information to the Water Board as an educational resource. And so I started working on this to help with that, and I hope that it is being used by current members of the Water Board, as well as maybe city council and other organizations that are in a decision-making role. Another organization that I work with is the Poudre Runs Through It work group, which is a collection of different people trying to make the Poudre a healthy working river. And that includes utilities and water districts and agriculture and environment and other folks. And again, there was a need to provide educational information and help support discussions that we were having, because it's very hard to have an in-depth discussion when you're constantly trying to teach people that may not be familiar with the material. So the website is organized according to, first of all, basin entities, which are a list of the players in the basin. I call it the lay of the land. So it just gives you some basic background about organizations and sectors that are involved with the river basin. And then across the top, there's more of a timeline. So there's historical data, which is a longer view, current conditions, which is obviously what's going on now. And then seasonal outlook is a bit more into the future, and future planning is multiple years, perhaps out to 2050 or a longer horizon. And then there are some resources, information, contacts, and things like that. So if we start going down the list of basin entities, this is organized using keywords that people that work in water quite often are are familiar with this. So things like agriculture and environment and municipal and recreation. So throughout the website, there are, the menus are organized by those keywords, and then there are additional topical words that are repeated. So for example, if it's environment, it may be related to wildfires or climate change. So the website, if you've worked with any geographical information system data or mapping data, quite often it gets very technical and a bit overwhelming. So we do not have maps here that have, let's say, 100 layers on them and then force the user to decide what to pick and choose to display. Instead, what we've done is organize the information on thematic maps that are hopefully easier to consume and easier for the average person to navigate. So I'm just going to jump through a few of these, and this is scheduled for an hour, but I don't want to talk for an hour straight. So I'm going to try to go through quickly and then leave some time at the end if there are any questions. So under basin entities, one of the things that's important in Colorado is water administration. And so these are the water districts that are in the entire South Platte Basin. And then the Poudre Basin is this black outline. And throughout the website, you'll see that the Poudre Basin is highlighted because that's really what we're focusing on. And in this case, we're in Water District 3, and there's a water commissioner that's an employee of the state of Colorado who helps make sure that the right people are getting the water according to their water rights and water law. And as an example of what we've built into the website, when you move around different features that are on the maps, you'll see that little area in the upper right is showing information about those features. And then this is the office, and if you click on that, it'll go to the Division 1 office, and they recently actually moved their office, so I think I need to change that location slightly. Moving through some of these other ones, the roundtable basins are a group that is comprised of many municipal water users and agriculture and environmental interests, and similar to the Poudre Runs Through It, but at a larger scale. And this is an organization that is connected to the Colorado Water Conservation Board and other water agencies in Colorado. And the larger green polygon is the South Platte Basin Roundtable. And then this carve out here is the Metro Roundtable, which includes Metropolitan Denver. And there are other roundtables throughout the state that everybody is talking about water issues. And that's actually a funding source that if you have projects, you can go to the roundtable and apply for projects to improve water infrastructure and supply, for example. So again, the Poudre is up here in the northern part. Counties are also important because that ties into some of the political things that are going on. So for example, the Thornton pipeline is going through county permitting processes, and the water issues that I've said are very complicated in the basin. That also intersects with projects like that. So one thing that is really important to understand is that population growth is driving many of the problems that we have. And so if you pull up a map and it has this little zigzag line here, that indicates that there's some graphical data that you can display. And so in this case, I clicked on Larimer County, and if I click on the population button, it shows the historical population as well as projected. So we're projected in 2050 to be up to 500,000 people, and keep that number in mind. So we can close this, and then let's click on Weld County over here, and they're expected to go up to 700,000. And one reason is it is a slightly bigger county, and actually a lot of Larimer County is mountainous, unincorporated areas. And then also the Weld County is friendly to business, and so there's a lot of growth related to that. So, and then this county that's colored in yellow, what I'm trying to do is show that that is an export of water from the basin. So we actually get water imported from the western slope basins. The green basins are those that touch the Poudre Basin, and then yellow is where Thornton is. So water is actually going to be exported to there. So it's trying to provide some background information. Legislative districts are also important because at the state level, that's how funding and other things might flow into our basin. And this is the districts are being updated right now due to the census. But again, showing some of the districts that are providing water to the basin as well as exporting from the basin. Now, in terms of physical, this is an important concept. There are sub-basins, and when you're on this website, you can zoom out and you can see these larger basins that we're a part of, including the Missouri Basin. But again, you can click on the little house over here to zoom back in. And these are the smaller basins, which we're using hydrologic unit codes, which is from the US Geological Survey. And you can mouse over the different basins and see what those are named. This is important when you're doing local scale work like fire recovery, because quite often that's divided up into these basins. Another feature that we built in is highlighting the rivers, and you can see this is the main stem here that I'm on. And if we were to go over here, this is the North Fork of the Poudre. So the Halligan Reservoir is on the North Fork. And then, there's other, Box Elder Creek is another one that comes into Fort Collins and has some stormwater issues with that. So all of these, I should mention, all of these maps have an information button at the top. And so you can read background information. This one explains in some detail what hydrologic unit codes are. And then you'll find that Joe Wright Creek over here is in this hydrologic unit code basin, but it is not in the water district that the state uses for administration. And it explains a little bit about that. Okay, and then again, physical stream reaches. So this has some of the same streams that were on that other map. And this map is really used as base level data, and the streams are also on many of the other maps. Agriculture. So these are all the ditches in the basin, and you'll see that the background has switched because it's useful to see the actual fields on here. And so this data, we're using a background from Google, and there's lots of different layers here, or background layers, that you can toggle on if you want to see a different background. So what should be obvious is that agriculture is very important in the basin. Again, much of the western side of the basin is in mountainous areas or might be public lands. But on the eastern side of the basin, we have ditches, and they extend beyond the Poudre Basin towards Greeley and out onto the plains. And in Fort Collins, we obviously do not have agriculture throughout the city anymore. So some of these lands have been converted to municipal, and the water has been transferred from agricultural to other use. And with this display, you can, or with this map, you can turn on a different area if you want to see how the ditches have changed. In this case, the boundaries of them have not changed too much over time, but there have been some sales and mergers and things like that. Food and dairies. This is a different kind of a layer. Some of these layers are statewide. So the dairy list I got from the Secretary of State business listings, and then the local food production, I put this together just using some data from various sources. So a lot of the CSAs and things are on there. And if you click on them, you can go to their website. So if you're interested in supporting local agriculture, this is one resource for finding that information. Okay, so then also education organizations. We have some Poudre Learning Center and Environmental Learning Center. And if it doesn't actually have a location within the basin. I put them out on the right here. So things like High Country News, Water Education Colorado, also to highlight that. So I should pause and say that one of my goals here is that all of these data sets should remain public, and if they can be enhanced with community input, then I welcome that. The contact information is in the resources over here. So if anybody's using this website and would like to add more data, please contact me. Okay, environment, in-stream flow reaches. This shows where there has been a water right that protects in-stream flows. And in Colorado, the legislation for that is relatively new in the 1970s, and therefore a lot of the in-stream flow water rights are junior to senior water rights, such as agriculture and municipal supply. And so although the in-stream flows are protected, quite often the rivers actually will run below those flow levels. And the purpose of those is to protect or to maintain flows for environmental reasons, such as fish habitat. So there are some interesting water cases in the basin related to that. And this is an area that will continue to be of interest to people. Environment organizations, just a different way to show some of the organizations: Save the Poudre, CSU Environmental Learning Center. So some of these obviously overlap with education. And again, more can be added to this map if I know where they are. Industry, I'm going to start going a little bit quicker here. Industry, so I just use this as an example to show breweries, and I do not actually know how accurate this is, because with COVID, some of these breweries, I'm sure, did not make it through. But the idea is to show important water industries and connect them back to the water supply and the river and useful information. Okay, municipal. So this is municipalities, which is one of the main data sets. And this is a statewide data set. So if you zoom out, there's over 200 incorporated municipalities. There's also a lot of unincorporated area where people are obviously getting their water. And in unincorporated areas, they may be using wells quite a bit. But in municipalities like Fort Collins, we have utilities and water districts that provide water. And what I will point out is it's a little bit deceiving when you look at these maps. So this is, I'm highlighting Fort Collins, and you can see what the boundary of that is. But right next to it, we have Timnath. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Timnath, and you can see that they have quite a bit of land, and so they're really planning for their growth. And then again, Windsor, which is has much less population than Fort Collins, but they have a lot of land. So they have annexed land and they're planning on that growth. And then Greeley is planning to grow quite a bit to the north of their footprint. So remember when I did counties, I showed population. So if I do the same thing for Fort Collins, we only have historical data, and this comes from the Department of Local Affairs. But you can see pretty steady growth because everybody likes moving to Fort Collins and going to school and staying here. And we don't have projections from DOLA. And then if you look at one of our neighbors like Timnath, sorry, I need to click on the marker. You'll see that the population is rapidly increasing. Now it's only up to 5,000 here, but who knows where that's going to go, especially with the land area that they have. And then similarly, Windsor, not quite as extreme, but we all know that that's growing quickly as well. So this is useful just for getting general information. And then boating organizations, there's a few rafting companies that we have there. Trails, I tried to grab some trails from City of Fort Collins. This also has Red Mountain and Soapstone up here. It's not the greatest maps, and I hope to improve that. There are some useful resources, for example, the poudretrail.org. If you click on that link, it shows you their website, and there's been quite a bit of effort down in the lower basin to have a nice trail system. Water quality monitoring. I got these maps from Fort Collins Utilities, but one of the problems is we do not have online data, real-time data or historical for the monitoring sites. And that's one of the issues with trying to use open data is not everybody puts their data out there. So I wish that we had more of that we could put online, and hopefully we will be able to get more data as we go forward. But at least here you can get a sense of where the water quality monitoring is located. And a question might be, well, maybe we should have a map that shows that on where the burn area is. And I will get to that in a moment here, sorry. Water providers, and I'm almost done with the lay of the land. So if you've made it through this, you're maybe much more educated than you were before. So the water providers are the utilities and the water districts that provide your water and you pay your bill to every month. And in the Fort Collins area, we actually have multiple water providers. So the municipal boundary is not the same as the Fort Collins utility boundary, and there are multiple providers. So for example, East Larimer County Water District, or Fort Collins Loveland Water District, or West Fort Collins Water District, and they are each competing in some ways for the water supply that's out there, whether that's from drying up agriculture or building new projects like Northern Integrated Supply or NISP. So that's an ongoing issue. And I don't actually have the boundaries for every entity because water districts are available from DOLA, but the other utility boundaries have to be acquired from every entity. And there's over 500 water providers in the state. So this data set is still being filled in. Okay. All right, so I have most of that filled out. And then these other menus, there are some gaps. These are being filled in based on grant funding that we've received. We have some funding from the Poudre Heritage Alliance and the Colorado Water Conservation Board. So we'll be filling in some of these additional data sets. But let me highlight a few of the other maps. So under current conditions, let's look at drought first. So we have the South Platte Basin has been fortunate this year with all the moisture that we received in the spring. And so we are not in a drought right now. But if we zoom out, Western Colorado is in a severe drought, as well as you can see much of the Southwest here. And as you know, it's been very hot recently. And so that drought will probably start creeping into our area. And one reason that we are fortunate to be able to survive these situations is we do have reservoir storage. And so the positive side of reservoirs is that it allows you to get through the tough times, like a checking account. You save your money or your water, and then when you need it, you can withdraw it. And that's one of those ongoing discussions about, do we need more reservoirs for population growth, or do we conserve our water and do a better job? That's one of those issues that we hope that this website can help educate people about. Okay, and then let's go to the wildfires map under current conditions. And this is a fairly complicated map because it's had additional things added over time. So I will explain a little bit there. The brownish gold polygons are historical fires, and the ones that we had last year have now switched into that historical designation, even though we are continuing to do work as other presenters have talked about in terms of fire recovery. But the brown areas show historical fires, and interestingly, you can see this greenish area here is the Cameron Peak fire. And when I mouse over it, you can see that in the upper left. And so if you didn't know any better, you might have been really concerned about where it was going to burn. But if you knew where this historical fire was, then you would realize that there's a good chance it's not going to burn over the same area again, at least until that growth covers that area. So the Cameron Peak fire is in this area, and if you zoom in a little bit, the burn area severity is also shown in a transparent layer here, and so the red is where it was very severe. You can see in the higher elevations there's quite a bit of red, and then again the rivers are on here for your benefit. This is the Cache La Poudre main stem, and this is Joe Wright Reservoir here. And so again, it's not in Water District 3, which is the black line, but it's in this other, it's in this hydrologic unit code. So interesting difference in how data is looked at. So let me pull out and explain a little bit more about this map. So the Continental Divide is shown on here, and the East Troublesome Fire started over on the western slope, and it went into Rocky Mountain National Park, which is the green here, and it actually crossed the Continental Divide. And you can see that the Continental Divide farther up here actually goes to the west around Jackson County. And so a lot of rough terrain and very difficult to fight fires. If we zoom out, basically new fires might have to be in Rocky Mountain National Park or the northern part of the state, but it's unlikely that these areas are going to burn again within the next few years. If we look out a bit farther, remember there was this fire, the Mullen Fire in Wyoming, and there was actually a historical fire up here as well that acted as a fire break. But you know, there are some lands here that could be susceptible, and then there is a little fire here. And then over here, the Morgan Creek fire. So there are some fires, but not as bad as last year. All right. We also have a snowpack map that doesn't show anything right now, and you can get to streamflow data. This is where, if you know the station you're interested in, you can click on that and go to the state of Colorado's website. They publish a lot of data. So we're trying to pull that all into one place so you don't have to look around quite so much. Yeah, so there's other things on here about current conditions related to boating and fishing and different things that we will add as we obtain funding for that. And then seasonal outlook, there are some outlooks for things like wildfires that in some cases there's an extra page that comes up and you can go look at these additional resources. Depending on the decisions you're trying to make or the planning you're trying to do, you may want to look at a little bit farther into the future. And then future planning, this is where we are trying to hook in planning efforts. The Colorado Water Plan is at a very high level. I did add a layer here for major projects. And so we have the Halligan Reservoir expansion, Northern Integrated Supply Project, Thornton Pipeline. Greeley has backed off of their Seaman Reservoir expansion, and instead they're pursuing the Terry Ranch project, which is a groundwater project. And then Chimney Hollow is a bit farther south in the Big Thompson Basin. So all of these have their own websites, which of course have the perspective of the project proponents. So they're trying to say what's great about their projects as expected, and the public can, of course, you can evaluate information and make your have your opinion about those things. And then there are other plans here, like for climate change and open space and whatnot, and that I hope to add those over time, but it does take resources to investigate all of those things. So I think I'll stop there. I would emphasize again that the purpose of this is not to it's technical, but it's not so technical that hopefully it's overwhelming to people. And it's organized in a way that you can come in and look at a specific perspective. And the main goal is to be a useful resource for education and decisions. So rather than, let's say, going into a city council meeting and perhaps being overwhelmed by water related things, this will at least give you some context and hopefully be more educated in terms of having discussions. And then for the general public, we are trying to add things, as I showed, for local food production, trails, boating, all those kinds of things. And we're not trying to reinvent anything that other people have done, but to integrate it and provide a useful jumping off point for that information. So I will stop there. Laura, do you have any questions, or have you seen any other ones come in?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, just an acknowledgement for the amount of work that this really had to have taken to pull all of these data sets together, even just simply the overlays of the maps and the information. So I want to commend you on that, because that feels, just the idea of putting it all together feels overwhelming for me. But I think it's wonderful to have. One question is, what do you see as some kind of everyday uses for this tool? I think one, as you were talking, that came up for me was even fishing, right? So I think there potentially could be some partnerships with folks like Rocky Mountain Flycasters, Trout Unlimited, to really help give their, fishermen and women kind of those extra tools and information they need to have a better experience.
Yeah. So there are, of course, resources, like I said, that, let's say we go to Cache La Poudre at the canyon mouth, which I believe is the longest stream record in the state. It was started in the 1880s. So you can go to the state's website and see what the flows are in the river at the canyon mouth. And maybe as a fisherman, fisher person, I should say, that helps you plan your day. But the real issue is that, let's say we look at ditches. Each of these ditches during the irrigation season is making diversions from the river in order to pass water down to their lands. And there are all kinds of dynamics there. There's the diurnal, which means when the sun is out, evaporation is happening. And so, the river kind of goes up and down based on the trees pulling water out of the river, to water themselves. So there's that thing going on. There is a lot of these ditch companies have reservoir storage. So up in the mountains or even the foothills, there are reservoirs that they release water from, and that impacts the river for fishing and recreation. So, and one thing I've learned is that farmers don't actually work on the weekends, or they don't like to as much either. And so they might take water deliveries during Monday through Friday, but Saturday and Sunday they don't. And what does that mean? It means that a reservoir might actually not be releasing water, so the river is lower. And so I'm trying with some of this work to build a foundation where then maybe we can pull in some of those more dynamic data sets and decisions that are being made to help people who are fishing or recreating or whatever it is. But it's a bit of a journey to get there, but I hope we can make progress on that.
And what are there particular industries that you hope to engage with in these earlier stages, whether it's agriculture or I like that you have the beer industry in there. We have a conversation later this afternoon with 3 breweries in Fort Collins talking about the importance of healthy rivers in the production of beer. So I just would be interested to see kind of where you think from an industry perspective, engagement would be important for you.
Well, I would love taking money from anybody to help us do the work that we're doing, but I've learned there too that a lot of these breweries are, they're doing the best they can. And with COVID, that really the COVID and the wildfire last year caused a lot of disruption in terms of government funding, grant funding, all of those kinds of things. And it is what it is. So I don't know, maybe I'll get a free beer or something if they know what I'm doing. But so to kind of play that story out, and this is where combining the different layers is something that we will continue to work with. But one of the stories with breweries is, well, which water provider do they get their water from, right? Is it the local utility or a water district? As you get further from the pristine waters of the mountains and the Poudre, are they using groundwater? That outside of the Poudre, there's all kinds of variation. Within the Poudre, we have pretty good water supply. But then you might say, all right, so they're getting their water from so-and-so. Well, how are they impacted by the fire, right? Or by drought or whatever. And so there's the ongoing impact, let's say, to water quality. And then you can also look at it from the business side and say, well, what's population growth doing and how well is this water utility going to be able to respond to that, whether it's water quality or price of the water or, things like that. So I'm not quite sure how all that will connect. And obviously if there's, 100 breweries, if I were to get them all on the map, with Greeley and everything else, I can't talk to all of them. So it's a bit of an organic process just to figure out how can we publish some information that's useful that maybe helps businesses, helps the public, whatever. Maybe the public wants to go to a brewery that has a program that supports the Poudre River, like some of your speakers, and we can connect the dots and say, yeah, this is a way that we can encourage breweries to give back to something that's in their supply chain, but also really does help, society and the environment and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm sure you're familiar with your connections in Fort Collins, but Brew Water is a conglomerate basically of breweries in the Fort Collins area that come together and just have conversations like this. So it'd probably be a good group for you to connect with.
Yeah, and the Horse and Dragon folks actually moved onto my street a year or two ago, so
Nice.
I know where they live.
Nice. Well, we appreciate Carol and Tim and what they've done for the festival. So that's great. Well, Steve, I really appreciate your presentation. Again, we're going to put this up in our river resources page on poudreriverfest.org. Continue again to just educate the community on the importance of the Poudre River, what they can do to take an active role in conserving it and educating themselves about the river. And I think this tool that you have built is really impactful, and I'm excited to see it grow and develop in the future.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think it's important that the various nonprofits are able to collaborate in some ways, and we view ourselves as a technical resource. We're not doing the same kind of work as other nonprofits. I think we can support education pretty closely, and perhaps through the data, there are opportunities also to see that, yes, some nonprofit, I don't know, increased the amount of water in the river or helped with conservation or whatever it is, and helping to connect those dots. That's the role of nonprofits in some ways, because the government entities, like for different cities, they're focused on their cities. But if we can look at this regionally and start to tell those stories, that's another way that hopefully all of this comes together.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a collective effort. There's no one group, one organization, or one person that's going to be able to solve some of these really large problems that we have in our communities and in our world for a more broad sense. So I agree with you. I appreciate you, Steve. Thank you for being with us today. It was a very interesting presentation for me. And again, I don't know if I have all of the knowledge to be able to properly use your tool today, but I'm gonna start to teach myself some things so that I can be a master Poudre Basin information website user.
Okay, very good.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, bye.